Luo encountered a lady named Shin Xiaolon, and they started chatting. As their conversation continued, Yuzora began to feel neglected, sensing that Luo had forgotten about her. Shin wondered when this damned fat nerd, referring to Luo, had gotten a girlfriend and brought her along, seemingly forgetting about Yuzora. Realizing his oversight, Luo quickly introduced Shin to Yuzora. Shin Xiaolon appeared happy that Luo had brought along a younger girl to swim, but Luo tried to explain that she had misunderstood the situation. Shin, however, wasn't willing to listen to any explanations. Reflecting on their childhood, Luo and Shin Xiaolon had always been inseparable. They were constantly together, regardless of what they were doing. During their younger years, Shin had even promised to be Luo's bride when they grew up. However, Luo rejected the idea, insisting that he would always treat her as his younger sister. Returning to the present, Luo couldn't consider Shin's childhood promise as a confession. She suggested that he should forget about it since time had passed. Shin introduced herself to Yuzora, and they exchanged pleasantries. Shin warned Yuzora not to be led astray by Luo, referring to him as a real pervert, and if he ever dared to bully her in the future, Yuzora should let her know, and she would take care of it for her. Yuzora assured Shin that Luo wouldn't bully her. Shin wondered if Yuzora had been brainwashed, believing so much in Luo Shenchi. Just then, Shin's friends called out her name, indicating that she should come and play with them. Before leaving, she approached Luo and told him to treat Yuzora well, warning him that she wouldn't let him off if he didn't. Yuzora jokingly complimented Luo for being so popular. At that moment, Luo placed his hands on Yuzora's shoulders and asked her if she truly wanted to be his girlfriend. Without hesitation, she replied that she truly wanted to be with him forever. However, almost immediately after saying so, she retreated back into her phone form. Luo assured her that he would patiently wait for her. Luo was asleep when he received a call from his mother. He groggily answered the phone, denying that he was still in bed. His mother had called him to ask for his help in selling a car that she had bought a few years ago. The car's warranty had expired, and it had been sitting unused for quite some time. Luo reluctantly got out of bed and returned home. He received a call informing him that his mother was preparing to buy a new car. When Luo arrived at the car, he had his hand bandaged to protect it from further incident occurring. He couldn't understand why his mother suddenly wanted to change the car when she had always liked it. He expressed his confusion, mentioning that everything has a life and cannot be changed so easily. His mother, overhearing his words, dismissed his concerns and instructed him to fix the car. Luo opened the car's bonnet and his mother asked him what the problem was. She couldn't identify the issue herself since she hadn't been able to drive the car after it broke down. She had taken it to a repair store in the US, and they had informed her that the car model was old, spare parts were difficult to find, and repair costs were expensive. Luo touched the car and noticed that it had indeed been used for a long time. He realized that his mother had been driving the car for years without even having basic knowledge about cars. Luo was not a professional car mechanic, so he didn't know which part of the car was broken. He sighed, unsure of what to do next. He wanted his mother to leave the scene and tried to gently push her away. He suggested that she go home, rest, and enjoy some nice juice and air conditioning while he checked if he could fix the car. His mother knew that Luo couldn't repair the car, and she tried to remove his hands from her shoulders. She recalled that he had failed his practical class when he was a child. However, Luo reassured her not to worry and insisted that he would fix it. Once his mother had left, Luo decided to remove the bandage from his hand to investigate the car. As soon as he removed the bandage and touched the car, it transformed into a girl. Luo was surprised to see that the girl recognized him. He gave her a bottle of water to drink, realizing that she was no longer a car and couldn't consume gasoline. She accepted the water and drank it, causing her to cough and spit something out. Observing her reaction, Luo wondered if that object was the part that had caused the car to malfunction, and she had coughed it up just now. Feeling grateful for his assistance, the girl asked Luo to let her sit on his lap as a way to repay him. Luo shouted in surprise at her unexpected request. Luo gently reminded her that she was now a human, no longer just a car. However, she couldn't help but ask Luo if he despised her because of her age. Trying to alleviate her sadness, Luo assured her that she was undoubtedly a beautiful girl. He reminisced that she had been with him since he was about 4 years old, which was a remarkable 14 years ago. She worried about being scrapped after the upcoming annual review, as she believed that once created, they dedicated their entire existence to their masters. Hearing her words, Luo felt a pang of sadness. She reached out and held his cheek, telling him not to be sad. She expressed her surprise at being turned into a human all of a sudden. She had always referred to Luo as idiot son. She playfully asked Luo to spend some time with her before she was eventually scrapped. Concerned about her well-being, Luo wondered if she could move around easily since she wasn't in good health. She reassured him that her entire body felt wonderful after his treatment. Luo's nerves were a bit frayed as he couldn't obtain his driver's license when he turned 18. Just then, he took out his phone and texted Yuzora, asking her to help him check the details regarding the scrapping of a car after 15 years. Speaking softly to her, he offered her the opportunity to accompany him from now on since he now had a license and would need a car in the future. Luo suggested that if she followed him, he would transform her into a human whenever she faced difficulties in the future, so she wouldn't have to worry about being scrapped again. She was amazed and thanked Luo for his kind offer. Suddenly, a wave of sleepiness washed over Luo, and she transformed back into a car. Surprised by the sudden turn of events, Luo realized that only an hour had passed since he last used his superpower. He wondered if the consumption rate of his superpower was proportionate to the size and complexity of the object, or if perhaps his power involved using part of his life force to transform objects into living beings. These thoughts swirled in his mind as he rose to his feet, unable to fully explain what had just happened. Just then, Luo's mother appeared and asked him why he was taking so long. Upon seeing the car miraculously fixed, she was astonished that Luo had managed to repair it. Luo took the opportunity and asked his mother if she could give him the car since she was planning to buy a new one. His mother agreed, mentioning that he needed the car for his dates with his girlfriend. Luo shouted, "Girlfriend," and wondered if his mother remembered Yuzora. Luo's mother was furious. She angrily questioned Luo, calling him a rascal and doubting her memory. Luo didn't dare to argue with his mother, but he explained that he was simply surprised that she still remembered the girl he had met at his place. In response, his mother grabbed his ear and asked if he had broken up with her. Luo assured her that they were doing fine and that he was planning to introduce Yuzora to his grandpa soon. Deep down, Luo's mother had always known that it would be difficult for him to find a girlfriend. Now that he had found one, she believed it would be a shame to miss this opportunity. Luo hopped into his car and drove away, lost in thought. As he drove, he couldn't help but wonder how his mother knew Yuzora. Could it be that his mother had some physical contact with Yuzora? Luo decided that he needed to find out. While he was still driving, he spotted a little kitten that resembled Mimi. He bent down, touched the kitten's head, and thinking if it was injured. Feeling sorry for the little kitten, he decided to take it home. Once he arrived home, he set the kitten down to play. Little did Luo know that this cute kitten he had brought back would later put him in an embarrassing situation in the future. Luo asked Yuzora to accompany him to the supermarket to pick up some things, but she declined, saying that she wanted to stay home with the kitten because she thought it would be scared. She held the kitten in her arms and named it Mimi due to its resemblance. Despite the joy that having a cat brought to most people, Luo didn't feel the same happiness. He was preoccupied with other thoughts. Luo was studying on his computer, praying not to fail his final exams or have to repeat the grade. Unbeknownst to Luo, the bandage he had used to wrap his injured hands had come loose. The curious little kitten noticed this and playfully tugged at the loose end, accidentally exposing Luo's hand. Suddenly, there was a flash of light, and Luo was taken aback. He couldn't understand why there was a sudden burst of light. When he turned his gaze towards his computer, he saw a girl sitting beside him with his hands resting on her lap. Luo was shocked to the core. Luo winced in pain as she delivered a powerful kick to his cheek, leaving it red and him sprawled on the floor. He knew she had done it intentionally, so he asked her why. She claimed it was an accident, but Luo wasn't convinced. Brushing off the incident, he got back on his feet. Realizing that she still didn't have a name, he decided to name her Mousy. However, she replied that she didn't need a name, showing more interest in her current appearance than her identity. Luo suspected that Mousy might be a tough and independent individual, so he respected her wishes and left her alone for the time being. He had other pressing matters to attend to, primarily his results, and he didn't want any distractions that could potentially be embarrassing. Meanwhile, Mousy seemed reluctant to leave the table, refusing to budge. Attempting to coax her away from the table, Luo asked if she wanted to see her reflection. He gestured towards a mirror, hoping it would entice her to move. Finally, Mousy complied, stepping down from the table. Luo felt relieved that she had left her perch, giving him space to focus. He decided to check his results, only to realize that the mouse he intended to use had transformed into her. He turned his gaze towards Mousy, who was examining her reflection in the mirror. To his horror, she began to lift her skirt. Luo shouted at her, emphasizing that it was inappropriate for girls to expose themselves in front of boys. Mousy paid no heed to Luo's warning. Frustrated, Luo called her over and pondered how he could make use of her in this new form. She lacked the typical scroll wheel and buttons of a conventional mouse, leaving Luo puzzled about how to operate his computer. Lost in thought, Mousy interrupted him with her words, suggesting that he couldn't control his instincts upon seeing her cute transformation. Luo dismissed her accusation, explaining that he had accidentally transformed her from a mouse into a girl and now needed her assistance to check his exam results. However, Mousy believed he had malicious intentions towards her. She declared that Luo need not worry about using the computer with the mouse and offered to help him. But her help came at a price. Due to Luo's habit of vigorously clicking the mouse while playing games, nearly torturing her, Mousy insisted on receiving a massage before she would assist him. Luo inquired about the type of massage Mousy was referring to. She expressed that Luo seemed to have a great time using her as a mouse but was now unwilling to give her a massage. Feeling somewhat awkward, Luo explained that it was because boys and girls shouldn't be too physically close. Curious about the kind of massage Mousy wanted, he asked if she preferred a Chinese chair massage or a Japanese one. Mousy left the choice up to Luo, as long as it felt good to her. Luo was unsure of his massage technique, as he had only massaged his grandpa and mom in the past. Randomly selecting one, he began massaging Mousy. She seemed to be enjoying it and encouraged him to use more strength. This strange situation made Luo feel even more awkward, as Mousy appeared completely defenseless. In his mind, Luo sarcastically thought of using useless strength as he applied pressure to her leg. Mousy shouted that he was not massaging the right place, but Luo told her to endure it, claiming it was a Chinese-style leg massage. Despite her protests, Luo continued massaging her legs. Mousy persisted in her cries, stating that she couldn't bear it any longer. In an attempt to gain Mousy's cooperation, Luo informed her that he wouldn't allow her to operate his computer if she didn't feel good during the massage. It was at that moment that Mousy realized Luo had been intentionally playing a trick on her. Outraged, she shouted at him for his audacity. Since Mousy was clearly unhappy with the situation, Luo decided to stop the massage. Mousy complained that her throat was parched from crying out, adding that none of this would have happened if Luo had been obedient from the beginning. Luo apologized to her, expressing remorse for his actions. Mousy eventually agreed to help him check his results while Luo controlled the keyboard. She instructed him to place his hand on her head and move it around as he would normally use a mouse. Luo followed her instructions. Closing his eyes, Luo silently prayed to God, hoping he wouldn't have to repeat the year. As he searched for his results, a surge of joy and happiness overwhelmed him. He had managed to pass the exam. Now his mother wouldn't have to worry about him repeating a grade. Luo proclaimed himself a king, even though he had barely scraped by. Mousy sighed, commenting on how challenging it was to serve such a master. Luo found himself facing the biggest challenge of his life, summer homework. A series of daunting books lay before him, and he felt overwhelmed, not knowing where to begin. He was supposed to participate in a summer social practice, but he couldn't even write a single word. Frustration filled his mind as he absent-mindedly scratched his head, observing a cat nearby, leisurely enjoying itself. Luo couldn't help but envy the carefree life of a cat, where food and shelter were provided, and napping was an art form. In that moment, he daydreamed about being reincarnated as a cat in his next life, longing for a life so seemingly effortless. He let out a sigh and lowered his head in defeat. Luo felt like he couldn't go on any longer. He believed his IQ was far too low, and his lack of talent in studying only exacerbated his difficulties. He wished someone could lend him a helping hand. Tears welled up in his eyes as he found himself overwhelmed with the challenges he faced. Just as he was about to give up, his eyes fell upon a pen lying on the table, and an idea sparked in his mind. What if he could find a pen buddy who could assist him with his homework? The worst part was that Luo didn't even know how to answer a seemingly simple question. All he could think about was food. The pen he held in his hand had been his trusted companion throughout his school years. With a sudden surge of determination, Luo decided to remove the bandage from his right hand. If the fountain pen, which had mysteriously transformed before, still possessed its magical powers, he would transform his homework into a companion who could help him complete the work effortlessly. As soon as Luo touched the pen, it began to transform. Startled, he watched as the pen morphed into a human figure. The newly formed lady called Luo a flunky master, introducing herself as an honest pen. Curious, she asked Luo what name he would give her. Finally, Luo had found an item that valued its own name. After hesitating for a moment, he decided to name her Lami, drawing inspiration from the brand of the fountain pen. Lami graciously accepted the name. Intrigued by the unexpected turn of events, Lami questioned Luo about why he had transformed her into a human form. Luo explained, desperately pleading for her assistance with his homework. He presented the assignment to Lami, who initially believed it would be a daunting task. To her surprise, the questions turned out to be relatively simple. However, Lami refused to help him complete the work, asserting that it was his homework, not hers. Before considering his request, she insisted that he fulfill a condition. Luo nodded in agreement.